Hello everyone, I am Josimo Lastimosa. At this moment, I'm going to be the one who will discuss about the introduction of the topic. Did you know that in the field of chemotherapy treatment, there is actually a drug that is widely used due to its efficiency and unique properties? So at this moment, we are going to discuss and examine about anthracycline. Anthracyclines are anti-tumor quinone-containing antibiotics, which means that this kind of antibiotics ang iyang chemical structure contain quinone. So, quinone is a type of aromatic compound with a specific arrangement of oxygen atom. Ang iyang usual nga arrangement is 2 ketone group with a formula of carbon is double bonded to an oxygen atom. So, it is an anti-tumor antibiotics consisting of a planar anthraquinone nucleus attached to an amino-containing sugar. So, when we say planar, it means that anthracycline's molecule are flat. And actually, ang anthracycline is being linked to a sugar or carbohydrate. And this sugar contain amino group, which then carries a positive charge, which helps this kind of drug bind the negatively charged DNA. And based on my research, this is what they call intercalation process. However, we somehow wonder what is the origin of anthracyclines, or where does it came from, or who discovered it. So from the next slide, for the next slides, I'm going to discuss about the historical background of anthracycline. So let's proceed. So anthracycline actually was discovered in 1960s by a group of Italian researchers, specifically silang Giulio Di Marco, Federico Di Arcamon, and the team at Farm Italia from Streptomyces bacteria. So basically, ang anthracycline are from Streptomyces bacteria. So what are Streptomyces bacteria? Streptomyces are a soil-dwelling bacteria that scientists found out produces a very important antibiotic medicine. And I think one of the example of the antibiotics that Streptomyces produces are streptomycin, tetracycline, and doxorubicin. They actually found out that this specific antibiotics that comes from streptomyces have an anti-tumor activity, or it has the ability to kill cancer. Therefore, anthracycline is actually ranked among one of the most effective anti-cancer drug ever developed. That would be all. Thank you.
So hello everyone. As for my part, I will be discussing about the absorption of anthracycline. So as what the previous reporter have mentioned, anthracycline is a class of chemotherapy drugs are absorbed into cells primarily through passive diffusion, which we will tackle about later on in this discussion. So, we will be talking about its absorption, the key factors of the absorption of this drug, as well as its negative effects to the person ingesting this drug. So, here, before we talk about passive diffusion, let's talk about how anthracycline is being produced before it is being absorbed into our body. So, first, it started as a streptomyces. So, this is a type of genus bacteria which produces anthracycline. And here, the next one will be the chemical structure of anthracycline. And for the last part, this is where the anti-cancer drugs is being produced. So first from streptomyces up until it is being developed into a drug that will be used for chemotherapy patients to treat cancer. Okay, so after knowing how it is produced, now let's talk about passive diffusion, which I have mentioned on the first slide. of this topic. So, anthracycline moves across the cell membrane from the area of high concentration, which is outside the cell, to an area of low concentration, which is inside the cell. So, this process is driven by the concentration gradient and doesn't require energy or specific transport proteins. So, this type of process is called passive diffusion, into which anthracycline is being absorbed into a human's body, specifically to a cancer patient's body undergoing to a chemotherapy. So now I will be talking about the several factors influencing anthracycline absorption. So there are four factors that influence its absorption to our human body. First is lipid solubility, second is pH, third is membrane transporters, and fourth is the cellular localization. The lipophilic, fat soluble nature of anthracycline allows them to readily cross the lipid bilayer of the cell membrane. So, this is the lipid solubility. Second will be pH. The pH of the surrounding environment affects the ionization state of the anthracycline. Third will be the membrane transporters. So while passive diffusion is the primary mechanism, some anthracycline may interact with membrane transporters. And the last one will be cellular localization. Once inside the cell, anthracycline accumulate primarily in the nucleus where they interact with the DNA. So these factors affects how anthracycline is being absorbed into our human body. This is crucial because without these factors, absorption will not take place. Now let's talk about the conclusion. So, in summary, the absorption of anthracycline is a complex process involving passive diffusion, influenced by the drug's lipophilicity, the surrounding pH, the active of membrane transporters, which are the ultimate intracellular concentration of the drug, determines its therapeutic efficacy. So in here, as what I have mentioned on the factors of absorption of anthracycline, this process is crucial or necessary since when we're taking the drugs, we will be expecting that it will give us the positive effects or the cure of our illnesses. That is why absorption is important since we are intaking the drugs for its positive effects. But it is important to also know the negative effects of the absorption of these types of drugs, since these drugs are strong that could damage other organs in our body. So, through absorptions, it could be through oral or it could be through chemotherapy.
Okay, good morning everyone. My name is Angel Angertan, and I will be discussing about distribution. So, distribution of anthracyclines. So, as we all know, anthracyclines are cancer-killing antibiotics. So, kwan sila, chemotherapy drugs sila nga gi-use para mo treat og various types of cancer. As you can see sa kani nga slide, kay nakoy gibutang nga examples of kanang antibiotics sa anthracycline. One upat ni sila kabuok. So, ang kaning first kay mo ni siya ang gitawag nga doxorubicin or the red devil tungod sa iyang color. Ang kaning ikaduha, gitawag siya og daunorubicin. Ang ikatulo kay ipirubicin. Ang ikaupat kay idarubicin. So, sa distribution sa anthracycline kay nag-exhibit sila og extensive tissue distribution due to their large volume of distribution and high affinity for cellular components. So, if mo na tag large volume of distribution, kay ang meaning ani, ang anthracycline if gi-take nimo, kay dili lang siya magstay sa blood, mo spread siya wildly sa kanang body tissues. And when we say high affinity for cellular components, meaning ang kaning nga drugs kani sila kaning doxorubicin, daunorubicin, ganahan sila mo bind sa kaning mga stuff sulod sa cells like sa DNA, sa protein o sa membrane. So after entering the bloodstream, they rapidly spread into highly perfused organs such as the heart, liver, kidneys, and lungs. So if moingon ta nga highly perfused, meaning ani kanang daghan og blood. So pareha aning heart, liver, kidneys ug lungs. So if daghan og blood sa kana nga part, kay ang kaning anthracycline adto ni siya murag adto sila mo padung jud. And so preferentially accumulating tumor issues due to leaky vasculature and rapid cell division. However, their penetration into the brain is limited by the blood-brain barrier. So, ang kining tumors, kuha ni siya, excessive growth sa tissue. So, mo-grow fast ni sila tapos mo-create og bago nga blood vessels. And ang kaning nga blood vessels kay often, kuha ni siya, like poorly built ni siya. So, tungod ana, ang kaning drugs pareha sa anthracycline, makasneak ni siya through sa kaning gaps kay poorly built man. So, mo sneak through the gaps in these vessels tapos maka-get inside the tumor. So, since ang tumor kay mag-divide man ni siya, kay so mo-attract ni siya og daghan nga kuan sa anthracycline. Kay ang target sa anthracycline kay rapidly dividing cells man. And when we say nga penetration into the brain is limited by the blood-brain barrier, ang kanidayang blood-brain barrier if kay numdum mo, like murag mao ni siya ang like wall good kaning wall sa nga nagprotect sa imong brain sa harmful nga substances sa blood. So ang kining blood-brain barrier kay nag-block ni siya mostly sa large or like chemically charged nga molecules, including na ni sa anthracycline from getting in. So muna nga ang kaning anthracycline dili kaayo ka enter sa blood sa brain niya ang effects niya kay minimal ra. So dalion ra nako. These are the general characteristics sa anthracycline. As I said before, large volume of distribution. So meaning kanang extensive tissue penetration beyond sa plasma. So again, ang anthracycline dili ra siya mo stay in the blood, they spread wildly into the body's tissues. And high tissue affinity, rapid uptake into highly perfused organs and tumors. When we say kanang highly perfused, meaning ang blood adto kay kanang daghan. Like for example, ang heart gets a lot of blood, so the heart is highly perfused. Munang ma-attract ang anthracycline sa heart. Nya mopadung siya to. Now let's go sa tissue distribution. First kay ang heart. Okay? So heart, high affinity for cardiac muscles, key site of dose-dependent toxicity linked to iron-mediated ROS generation. So, when we say high affinity for cardiac muscle, ang kaning anthracycline mo bind sila strongly sa components inside sa heart cells, especially ang mitochondria ug ang DNA. So, since ang heart kay highly perfused man, as I said, it gets a lot of blood. So, a lot of the drug reaches it fast. And unlike some other tissues, ang kaning heart cells na to kay na sila lower capacity to clear or to protect themselves from the drug. So, bali maura ni sila kanang ang anthracycline kay magnetically drawn siya sa heart kay kanang lower man ang capacity sa heart para mo protect themselves. And then when we say key site siya sa dose dependent toxicity, meaning ani, the more anthracycline you get over time, kanang the higher the risk of heart damage. So mao nang makalid ni siya sa cardiomyopathy. Kaning meaning ani kay ang heart muscle kay mo weaken na siya, nya dili na siya ka-pump properly. So next kay kining link to iron mediated ROS generation. So ang anthracycline mo interact ni siya sa iron nga naa sa imuhang lawas. So mo form ni siya og like complexes. So ang kaning mga complexes mo trigger ni siya sa formation of kaning reactive oxygen species mo ng ROS. Ang kaning ROS, they are super aggressive molecules nga makadamage sa lipids, sa proteins o sa DNA. Ang heart cells nato kay na sila low levels of antioxidant defenses. So mo nang dili sila ka fight back. So mo nang ang anthracycline kay mo accumulate sa cardiac muscle due to the strong cellular affinity which the heart has. And if we read this, anthracycline have a large volume of distribution because they move out of the bloodstream and spread wildly into body tissues. And the next. Okay. So as I said before nga ang tumor kay kuan siya mass of cells that are dividing and growing uncontrollably. So, ang tumors kay rapidly dividing cells ni sila. Maunang kanang attracted kayo ang anthracycline sa tumors. So, tissue distribution. Sa liver, sa spleen, sa kidneys ug sa lungs, ang kaning liver, spleen, kidney ug lungs kay they act as metabolic and excretory hubs. So meaning ani kanang sila ang kanang involve sa kining drug metabolism, sa filtration, sa excretion, as you can see, sites of moderate to high drug accumulation. So meaning ani kay ang kaning liver, spleen, kidneys ug lungs, they kanang receive high blood flow. If high blood flow, meaning highly perfused. So if highly perfused, kay ma-attract ang anthracycline kay highly perfused man. Maunang makalid siya to moderate to high accumulation sa anthracyclines. So potential sites for the kining liver, spleen, kidneys, and lungs ay there are potential sites for drug-induced toxicity, especially if prolonged ang exposure. And sa kining tumor tissue, ang distribution niya, as I said before, preferential uptake due to increased vascular permeability. So, accumulates more in rapidly dividing cells. Kay ang kining tumor, kuan man ni sila, nasa sila rapidly dividing cells. So, ni-attract siya og anthracyclines. Kay ang anthracyclines, ang ilang gi-target kay ang DNA. Okay? Next. Okay. So, tissue distribution. I already said this as well. Kanang sa iyang central nervous system or sa CNS na to, na siya'y limited penetration across the blood-brain barrier. Kay, ang blood-brain barrier, as I said, mo ni sila ang, nga ni, like, wall of tightly packed nga cells nga nagprotect sa atong brain from harmful substances sa blood. So, i-block ni niya ang most large or chemically charged nga molecules, including anthracyclines, from getting in. So, in simple terms kay, if you imagine, ang kining brain, more ni siya like bouncer sa kining VIP nga club. Ang kaning anthracyclines, wala ni sila right nga mo get through. So, that's why they cannot enter easily. And their effects sa brain kay minimal. Okay, and when we say poor choice for primary brain tumors unless delivered intrathecally, ang kaning anthracyclines dili man ni sila ka naturally cross sa CNS, di ba? So dili sila ideal for treating brain cancers. So pero if needed, kay doctors can bypass the BBB or kaning blood-brain barrier by delivering the drug directly into the CSF, katong cerebrospinal fluid. Ang tawag ani kay kanang intrathecal administration. And next is pharmacokinetic features. So, plasma protein binding, 70 to 75%. So, primarily binds to albumin and lipoproteins. So, when we say plasma protein binding, meaning ani, nga if ang drug mo enter sa bloodstream nimo, it can do two things. First, kay mo float siya freely. Second, mo bind siya sa plasma proteins. Ang kaning albumin kay mao ni siya ang pinaka-abundant nga protein sa imuhang blood. Nya ang kaning lipoprotein mo ni siya ang fat protein nga combo. So kani silang duha, mo ni sila ang VIP nga iganahan kayo mo attach si si anthracycline. So mga kining 70 to 75%, mga around 3/4 sa anthracyclines nga naa sa blood kay bound sila sa albumin or sa lipoprotein. Ang kaning remaining 25 to 30 kay free sila para mo cross sa membrane, mo enter sa tissues, or mo kanang buhat sa kining cancer kicking nga job nga ilang tang buhaton. So, if we say bound drug kay meaning inactive, pero it serves as a reservoir, it can slowly unbind and become active. So, this is important because it helps maintain stable blood vessels over time. It's also important that it changes in albumin, like sa liver disease or malnutrition. So, maka-alter siya og drug effects, meaning more free drug equals higher toxicity risk. And yes, okay, that's the rest of the distribution. You can now go to the next reporter for the metabolism. Thank you.
Okay, so let's delve deeper to the metabolic effect of these drugs into our body. Anthracyclines are potent and widely used anti-cancer drugs, but their therapeutic efficacy is intricately linked to a complex metabolic process that unfortunately also drives severe, often irreversible cardiotoxicity. So, the metabolism of anthracyclines is a critical determinant of both their therapeutic efficacies, their organ-specific toxicities. This process primarily involves enzymatic transformation that modify the parent drug into various metabolites. Some
of which retain anti-cancer activity, while others contribute to the adverse effects in our bodies. The primary processing hub of this metabolism is the liver. The liver is a principal organ responsible for biotransformation of anthracyclines. The liver handles the bulk of anthracyclines metabolism. The heart itself possesses a complement of metabolic enzymes that actively contribute to the formation of metabolites. Crucially, this cardiac metabolic process are particularly implicated in the generation of metabolites that are known to be cardiotoxic. The heart's unique metabolic environment, coupled with its inherent sensitivity to oxidative stress, make it vulnerable to damaging effects of these local form toxic species. This differential metabolism in cardiac tissues is a significant factor in the organ-specific toxicity observed with anthracyclines. Hepatic enzymes, particularly cytochrome P450 enzymes, play a significant role in hydroxylating anthracycline compounds in our body. These hydroxylation reaction can lead to the formation of metabolites with altered pharmacological and toxicological profiles. While some of these liver-derived metabolites may contribute to the extensive metabolism, and the liver also sets the stage for systematic exposure to various anthracycline species. The anthracyclines in our body is somehow called a double-edged sword because efficacy versus toxicity. The metabolic transformation of anthracyclines represent a classic double-edged scenario, essential for therapeutic action. In this very metabolic process that breaks down anthracyclines are often integral to their mechanism of action in killing cancer cells. For instance, the generation of certain active metabolites or reactive species may be required for their DNA damaging effects or for inducing apoptosis malignant cells. Without this metabolic transformation, the drug anti-cancer potency might be significantly diminished. Today, I want to talk about something incredibly important in cancer treatment, a group of drugs called anthracyclines. These are powerful medications that have saved countless lives, effectively battling a wide range of cancers. They are, in many ways, the heavy artillery in our fight against this disease. However, like any powerful tool, anthracyclines comes with significant challenge. A very serious side effect known as cardiotoxicity, which can lead to heart damage and even heart failure. It's a truly heartbreaking paradox. A drug that saves lives can also, in some cases, harm the very organ that sustains them. The key to understanding this paradox and ultimately to addressing it lies in something called metabolism. Think of metabolism as the body's processing plant. When we take a drug, our body begins to break it down, transforming it into different compounds. Now, for anthracyclines, this metabolic journey is a double-edged sword. One side of the blade, the good side. Metabolism is of absolute essential for this drug to work. It's through this transformation that anthracyclines unleash their cancer-killing power. They need to be processed in certain ways to effectively attack cancer cells, inhibit their growth, and ultimately led to their demise. So, without this metabolic activity, the drug wouldn't be nearly as effective. But then we have the other side of the blade, the challenging side. The very same metabolic process that activate the drug can also create byproducts or metabolites that are harmful to heart. It's like a factory that produces a valuable product but also generates a toxic waste product as a byproduct. Our primary processing plant for drug is the liver. The liver does a fantastic job for breaking down anthracyclines, and initial processing is crucial. However, what's particularly concerning is that the heart itself has also its own metabolic enzymes. And these enzymes, right there within the heart tissue, contribute to the formation of these cardiotoxicity metabolites. This means that heart isn't the passive victim. It's actively involved in creating its vulnerability. We're talking about enzymes like cytochrome P450, step called hydroxylation. This process chemically changes the anthracycline molecule. While some of these changes are beneficial for fighting cancer, others what contribute to the heart damage. So, where does this leave us? This deep understanding of anthracycline metabolism isn't just for scientists in a lab. It has profound application for every patient undergo anthracycline treatment. Imagine a future we can be better select patients for anthracycline therapy, identifying those who might be at higher risk of heart damage, perhaps offering them alternative treatment or specialized monitoring. This knowledge is about empowering us to maximize the incredible benefits of anthracyclines in treating cancer, while simultaneously safeguarding the long term health and well being of our patients. It's about finding that the delicate balance, ensuring the sword we wield against cancer doesn't inadvertently harm the heart we're fighting to protect. Thank you.
Okay, so good day everyone. I am Eliza Fabroa and I'll be the one to discuss excretion. So, we all know what excretion is, right? So, for definition, excretion refers to how a drug is eliminated from the body after it has been absorbed and metabolized. So, ang excretion mo siya ang process sa pag-excrete or pagpagawas sa drug sa atuang body. And for anthracyclines, excretion involves several key steps and
So the
pathways.
primary
Route for excretion of anthracyclines in our body is through biliary excretion. As you can see in the picture, we have here liver and the bile. So after the drug is being metabolized in the liver, it is secreted into bile. And the bile then carries the drug and its metabolites into the intestines, where they are finally excreted in the feces. So basically, ang biliary excretion is ang pag-excrete through feces. And over 40% to 60% of the administered dose is eliminated through this fecal route. So if now money siya nga excretion, I mean through biliary excretion, ang mapagawas nga drug or percentage sa drug sa imuhang body is over 40% to
So the
60%.
secondary
route of anthracyclines is the renal excretion. So if we take a look in the picture, kita nato ang kidneys. So a smaller percentage of anthracyclines is excreted through the kidneys into the urine. So if ang biliary excretion is from liver to feces, ang renal excretion is from kidneys to urine. Typically, 5% to 12% of the drug can be recovered in the urine after administration. So, muna siya ang makuha nga dosage sa anthracycline sa ato ang body if i-excrete ni nato through urine. And take note that sometimes patients' urine may appear red or orange after taking this drug. And this is due to the color of the drug being excreted and is not blood. So if mo take ang mga patients og anthracyclines, usually ang ilahang blood or sometimes ang ilahang blood, ang ilahang urine is color orange or sometimes red. And this is not because nakahi sila blood, but this is due to the drug being taken. And while this is not the major route, it's still important in patients with kidney problems as impaired renal function may slightly affect
So
drugs.
next is
The enterohepatic recirculation. Some anthracycline metabolites may undergo enterohepatic recirculation sa manisiya. This means that after being secreted into the intestine, they can be reabsorbed back into the bloodstream. So may pasabot ani. 'Di ba ang primary route sa anthracycline drugs sa atuang body is through biliary excretion. So from our liver, ma-excrete siya through feces. And instead of being eliminated with feces, ang kaning enterohepatic recirculation, some of these metabolites get reabsorbed through the wall of the intestine and go back into the bloodstream. And once reabsorbed, they are carried back to the liver and the cycle can repeat again. So this process prolongs the presence of the drug in the body and can enhance its therapeutic effect but also increase toxicity if the cycle continues. To summarize the excretion of anthracyclines in our body, we have here three phases: initial phase, intermediate phase, and terminal phase. But before we tackle about this, let's define first what's half-life and elimination kinetics. So half-life, I know you've heard about this from the previous reporter, pero ato rin siyang baliko, no? Ang half-life is the time it takes for the concentration of a drug in the body to decrease by half. So, for example, if ilang tanta, nga itong itik nga tambal is paracetamol. Let's say, biogesic lang. And then, ang biogesic, ang half-life ani niya is from 3 to 4 hours. And so, let's say mo inom ka og 500 milligrams nga biogesic. So after 3 to 4 hours, ang habilin na lang nga dose ana sa imong body is pila naman lang? 250 milligrams. And if maabot na siya og 6 to 8 hours, so ma-fully eliminated na ang dosage sa imong body. So that's half-life. And elimination kinetics, on the other hand, describes how the body removes the drug over time. So for the anthracyclines, yes, we have three phases. First is the initial phase or the rapid distribution from blood to tissues. So muna ta siya no, ang pag-distribute sa anthracyclines is sa ato ang organ nga liver, heart ug kidneys. Mo na siya ang primary route ang mga routes sa pag-distribute sa anthracyclines sa ato ang body or tissues. Next is the intermediate phase or the redistribution from tissues back into the blood. So mo na siya ang enterohepatic excretion. Right? Nga naay instead nga ang anthracyclines is mahimo siyang feces or urines, some of the metabolites is mabalik siya sa ato ang bloodstream, and then the cycle then continues. And then next is the terminal phase where it is the slow clearance from the body. Dili na mahitabo ang pag-excrete sa tambal through feces or urine. And the terminal half-life or the time it takes for the drug's concentration to reduce is approximately 20 to 48 hours depending on the specific anthracycline and the patient's metabolism. So, ang terminal half-life sa anthracyclines is from 20 to 48 hours and magdepende po siya sa metabolism sa patient. Next is the clinical considerations. So, because excretion mainly relies on liver function, patients with liver disease or elevated liver enzymes may not eliminate anthracyclines efficiently. And this can lead to accumulation of the drug, increasing the risks of serious side effects. So the same with the kidney, no? If nakay problema sa imong kidney, so dili gid na ma-eliminate og tarong sa imong lawas ang drug. And so those adjustments are often necessary in these patients, and health professionals regularly monitor liver function tests and drug levels when giving anthracycline therapy.
Now, I'll be talking about the effects of anthracycline in the brain. As you know now that the anthracycline is used as a chemotherapy drugs to treat cancer patients, but this can also have negative effects, which are the following. The first effect is anthracycline-based chemotherapy regimens are known to be associated with cognitive impairment. Anthracyclines are very effective anti-cancer drugs, but a known downside is their potential to cause cognitive problems. Many patients report after having the treatment is they have trouble with their memory, attention, and overall mental activity, which can lead to a condition that's sometimes called or referred to as chemo brain. The second effect is research indicates that anthracycline treatment can affect brain connectivity, particularly in the left preconscious region of the brain, which is involved in memory, spatial processing, and consciousness. There are studies now using brain imaging have shown changes in how different parts of the brain communicate after the anthracycline treatment. One area especially affected is the left preconscious, which is responsible for remembering and understanding things, and it can even play a role in our awareness. So for the third effect is anthracyclines can trigger inflammation and oxidative stress in the brain, which may contribute to the observed cognitive decline. Recent studies suggest that one reason anthracycline affect the brain function is due to inflammation and oxidative stress. These processes damage brain cells and interfere with how brain regions communicate, which can lead to memory issues, brain fog, and other symptoms of chemo brain. Down to the fourth and last effect is the term chemo brain, which I have mentioned earlier is often used to describe cognitive difficulties that can occur during or after the chemotherapy treatment. This is backed up by research and refers to real cognitive changes that can last for months or even years after the treatment. To add more, not all cognitive symptoms appear immediately. Some may even begin during the treatment, while others appear for months or even years later. There are also cases that the cognitive effects are temporary, but for others, they may be long lasting or even permanent. Additionally, older adults and children are especially vulnerable for these effects. For kids, these drugs can interfere with their brain development, affecting their learning in school and also other activities that can benefit their gro- growth. And for the elderly, it may accelerate their age related cognitive decline. To sum it all up, while anthracyclines are powerful chemotherapy drugs that can help save lives by killing cancer cells, they can also affect the brain, particularly in ways that impact their memory, attention, and their mental sharpness. That's all from my part.